I am super excited because I've built my whole career around how we tell stories with data. I believe authentically that data forms a critical part of how we tell stories in organizations. And the reason why I'm excited is because I get to do this with you today. Take your survey information, a little bit from some of the different executive layer to tell a story around where Australia is with being AI ready and with being data driven. Now, a good place to start is how we open the survey. We ask you in an open text box question, what are the business goals that you want to achieve this year? We do a degree of automated text processing, a little sprinkle of quality assurance, and we get your top 10. You can see that number 1 is creating a data-driven organization. And when we start to unpack that token, we actually see that it's not the automated decision-making. It's how we provide people with useful information, fact-based insights. So then they can weigh that up with their intuition, with their experience, and all these lovely human elements about how we make decisions in organizations. So number 1's data, number 2 is AI. Great news. We're at the right event. And we will unpack some of the roadblocks to you achieving your strategy as well as where you are in your roadmap throughout this presentation. The last one I'll go through is the tech modernization and simplification, because we can't do the analytics that we want to do without the right compute, network, storage, and application layer. The reason why I want to stop there as well is because it's the number 1 goal for CIOs. In fact, if you have a look at the top 4 goals for CIOs, it is the modernization, being secure and trusted, operationally efficient, and cost-effective. Those are the core metrics that a CIO has to deliver on. It's how they're evaluated in their role. And it's therapeutic to see that just after that, at number 5, it's you. It's being data-driven. And we see, for the first time at number 7, AI coming in heavily to the priority list for CIOs. Why is that important? We asked 200 CIOs in February how prepared they feel to harness AI this year. Let's do a quick hand poll. Who thinks half of them are ready? Oh, Jim, you ruined it for me. 20%. 20% of CIOs. Yeah, a couple. How about 10%? Going once, going twice. How about 0? On a simple scale of 1 to 5, we see that 66% of people are in negative sentiment. They doubt their ability to harness AI. 25% are neutral, and you could argue if you're neutral, you're also unprepared. 9% are in positive sentiment, but nobody in that group of 200 feels fully prepared to harness AI this year. I don't mind that. I think it's authentic, I think it's honest. And with the group of people here today, with the workshops, the networking, the meetings, we can think about how we move that dial forward and give them confidence. For the moment, there's not much I can do with that 5-point scale, so I'm going to chop it up a bit. Unprepared, neutral, and prepared. This way, my team and I can run our classification algorithms, and we can see what makes people more prepared. As we run our ML models, we find a lot of different variables, but there's 3 that really stick out because of their rate of impact. The first is, organizations that have good data governance are 4 times more likely to be in that prepared category. Makes complete sense. It's about having the standardized processes about how we gather, store, analyze information with clear scopes of responsibility and security embedded throughout. And this improves the quality of data as well. Now, if you're doing AI, there is a hypothesis that it might solve data quality issues, but it actually exacerbates it. Especially with large language models. Bad data, hallucination rate goes right through the roof. If you're unaware, hallucination rate is just a really kind way of saying when these models don't know the answer, they just make shit up. Kind of funny, you're right. Also a little bit scary. The next thing that we see is if you have a mature data and information architecture, or IA, you're 7 times more likely to be in that group. So there is no AI without IA. And we've got to think about how we build the foundations to properly leverage data and AI. The biggest impact is organizations that have a productive data culture and end-user literacy are 9 times more likely to be prepared for AI. And we're going to unpack that a bit more towards the end of the presentation. It's interesting. When we talk about technology projects, often there's three pillars to it: people, process, technology. It would look like that AI is absolutely no different. Now, some of you see this, and it seems obvious to you. And there's a couple of reasons behind that. The first is the rate of impact. When you're a practitioner, anything that has that relative impact and probabilities is either going to be obvious, or when you see it, it's going to validate in your mind against your experience and go, of course, that's the right list. The other reason is, selfishly, in a CIO survey, we actually want to cover a lot of ground. We want to know how they charge back IT, digital workspace, to cloud or not to cloud. That is a question that we ask them. The advantage of going across different personas is we get to do deep dives into these different areas. Let's go ground up and start with the data governance. So we asked where you're looking to invest this year. And this is denoted by the proportion of you looking to spend in different areas. So 78% of you have an intention to spend in data visualization this year. I love that. I think that the way that we visualize information with scales, charts, with how we think about the story behind a dashboard is crucial to us understanding our organization. When you start to democratize that out, you have the third point along: business intelligence and self-service. For line items of about 100, a lot of these are actually data governance. Well, there's the obvious one, but there's also GRC. And when you think about risk, how are we safeguarding our organizational data assets? What data do we have visibility on? Does the data that we don't have visibility on create a risk in our organization? With compliance, it's always changing. I don't know if you've seen the amendments to the Privacy Act that are probably coming in August around the right to be forgotten. Right to be forgotten, conceptually, really simple. In practice, in a lot of your organizations with the disparate nature of data, incredibly difficult. We see data catalogs, glossaries, and definitions there as well. So what you're trying to tell me, I think, through that is there is a need to standardize how we measure, how we understand, and have a common language around the data that's important in our organization. So where are we with maturity? Well, you say, 44% of you say that your organizations are immature at ensuring data governance. 54% of CIOs. In fact, only 18% of CIOs that we surveyed said their organizations were mature. And those numbers are essentially the same. You have an agreement about the level of maturity. Because of that, the top initiative to achieve those business goals that I showed you before for you is governance and compliance. It's also number 2 for the CISO. And that's important. It's important because we asked the CISOs separately about the data maturity in organizations for AI to be successfully deployed. And we see some interesting things. We are most effective at securing AI models against cyber risks. We then have 27% only of respondents are good at enacting access-based. And CISOs have a very high focus on identity, and identity will form a crucial part for your data strategy for verifying who has access to the right information. We have things like ethical oversight here. What I find really interesting is only 18% say that organizations are effective at empowering data owners. Only 13% say assigning clear accountability to improve data maturity. Now, these aren't necessarily in the CISO role, and this is not them having a go at you. This is them agreeing with you, because there seems to be a consensus amongst the executive layer that data governance needs to be seriously addressed. The good news is you have another ally. When we ask you and we ask the CISO about your roles in harnessing AI, you're both quite strategic in the way that you provide advice. So there's an opportunity to reach out, to collaborate, to build ethical frameworks, and to adopt assurance models to be able to correctly deploy AI in a safe and productive way. So let's move on to the data and information architecture. I like that immature and mature aspect of some of our self-assessments. So we asked you, in terms of your architecture, where the maturity is. By the way, if you're wondering why some of these lines don't add up to 100, we took the neutrals out. It wasn't that interesting. So 44% of us are really good at capturing and storing data. You might argue that we're almost too good at it in some cases. We capture huge amounts of information that we'll never use. Only 27% are good at building a robust information architecture, robust being scalable, secure, fit for purpose, and supporting the strategy. There's some other areas here like improving data quality and integration, integrating disparate data sets. Look, these things are good, even if you're not doing AI. So what have we seen so far? We've seen from the perspective of the CIO, we don't feel ready for AI. From your perspective and the CISO's perspective, there's some maturity areas that are lacking. Do you want to know something funny though? We're doing it anyway. We can see that 27% of organizations are looking to build, host, or train their own LLM models this year. If you think about that in terms of only 9% being prepared, it means that 19% of people that feel unprepared are still going to try it. This is one of the things I love about working in Australia. That stat is so Aussie. Are you ready for AI? No. Are you going to give it a crack? Oh yeah. But this poses a problem. And my colleague here, Byron, had a fantastic saying. I don't think he realized how good it was at the time, which is, in some of our organizations, is generative AI a solution looking for a problem? And because of that, we see that 48% of you don't actually have a defined use case. And get your phones ready, because I want to do a live poll on this. What I'll start is I'll show you the use cases that people are actually looking to achieve. So open text box again, we didn't want to lead the witness. And we can see the top use case is end user productivity. That is enabling people to find better access as the integration of software as a service products to see how people are being more effective in their role. Then we see some traditional ML aspects, things like depth and speed to insights, processing documents in, the role that AI and ML plays in forecasting and risk. So what I want to know really from your perspective, seeing the information so far, and let's switch over to the live poll, please, is what do you really want to achieve from your AI strategy this year? Are you not doing AI and you're just going to cement your data strategy? Are you looking for a proof of concept? Something that you can take to the board? By the way, adoption comes up a lot in terms of the initiatives to underpin AI. Adoption and buy-in. So how do we get users to understand that this is going to be useful for us? And let's switch over to the results. Let's see them live. I love to see results live. Here we go. So we're looking primarily for improved business measures. That's good. The issue is if you don't have a defined use case and you need the buy-in from the board level, you've got to think really carefully about how the metrics that you use underpin whether you're moving the dial forward on that. It's good to see some people are aiming for that transformational state as well. I'd love to catch up with you afterwards, see how you're going to approach that in terms of scaling AI across your organization. We'll get the poll results to you afterwards. If you keep voting, keep going, let's close it up. Thank you. The last area that we're going to talk about here is data culture and literacy. And I'm going to go back to what Jim said. He set you the problem statement last year. Let's move the dial forward on being confident on delivering on our data strategy. I then doubled down on that. I got up here and said, hey, if you move the dial forward, I'm going to give you some insights about what people did in order to move more towards being confident. So the reason why this fits into the people and culture piece is all the variables that we found were inherently people-based. We found that organizations that have a proactive relationship with their executive leadership team are far more confident. So people that are not confident, only 36% of people are proactive. Gets a bit better for the neutrals, and then you can see 85% of confident people are proactive in their relationship with their ELT. You see something similar for the relationship with the CEO and board, but it's a little bit lower. It's a little bit low because maybe there aren't the same opportunities to engage. Maybe engaging in that layer requires a different sort of language, different sort of metrics, and how you think about how you present AI to the board. We see that the executive data literacy is highly impactful in you feeling more confident about delivering on your data strategy. And a little bit smaller rate of impact is the end user literacy. Now, those of you who are very statistically minded and build models might look at that and go, there's some collinearity issues there. Of course there is. And that's kind of the point, right? Because if you follow the relative impact down, there's a use case that you can try. You can try be more proactive in your relationships with more senior people in the organization to try build that organizational data literacy, to help them then take that to their team and filter down to build the end user literacy. You know how we do that cyber awareness training month? I was thinking about it. I was thinking, could we have a data literacy month? I don't think so. I don't think so because the difference in skills needed for someone in finance, someone in marketing, someone in frontline across the organization and different levels is way too diverse. And targeting all end users is going to be really difficult. So if we want to uplift the literacy of an organization, maybe we should focus our efforts a little bit higher up. Let's start to wrap this up. The last thing I wanted to show you is if we take the survey and we have a look at what are the big outcome metrics in the survey. These are them. These are the things that you're trying to optimize. You're trying to give yourself more confidence in in delivery. You're trying to build a productive data culture and you're trying to align the data with the business strategy. And interestingly, from the variables I showed you before, these are the common drivers. So if we build any sort of ML model where we try and predict who's more confident, who's more productive, who's got better business alignment, you need these three in all of them. If you take one out, your model doesn't perform as well. We primarily use accuracy and kappa because we're using classification, but you can test this against regression or anything else. Then we have something called rotating variables. So depending on the model taxonomy and depending on whether we want recall, whether we want accuracy, whether we want to look at our false positives or F1 scores, we have a list of things that rotate in and out. And I sat down with Jim last week to go through it and thinking about what I wanted to present to you. He goes, don't call them rotating variables, these are tactics. And if you look at them closely, that's true. It's how we encourage people to have a positive perception to rapidly learn and update digital skills. It's us focusing on building those strong relationships and using cross-functional teams. So when we have a data strategy, we are incorporating people from different aspects so the data is fit for purpose and more aligned. There's the standardized governance, there's the dashboarding and giving access to information, the ability to integrate data from different sources, and that's going to be particularly important when we look at scaling AI across the organization or building a single view of customer. Having an AI or ML roadmap, that's more of a binary thing. So do you do it, do you not do it? If you do it, generally you have better executive literacy and you're moving more towards data quality. And the last one is the data architecture. How we think about how we want to analyze information and then reverse engineering the platform that supports that productively.